Mrs. McGetrick, are you all set? Okay. We're going to call to order our first hearing of the evening. This is the application of Thayer Nursery. It's dated September 26, 2019, and they're seeking an amended special permit pursuant to Section 9C of the Milton zoning bylaw. The applicant is proposing to have an annual holiday boutique on the first Sunday in December, except when that Sunday is Thanksgiving weekend, in which event the event will be on the second Sunday in December for the duration of a 5-year period with hours of operation for this holiday boutique from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Thayer Nursery facility, which is at least partially located at 270 Hillside Street in Milton. The applicant was previously granted a limited exception special permit with conditions for a holiday boutique on December 1st, 2018. The property is located partially in an A and a AA zoning district. My name is John Leonard. I'm chairman of the Board of Appeals. With me tonight, to my immediate left, is board member Virginia Donahue King, and to my immediate right is board member Frank O'Brien. The rules of the board are such: we'll hear from the applicant, then we'll hear from persons who are interested in the application, and people who want to speak in support of this application or an amendment of this application, or who wish to speak in opposition to it. We're tape recording the proceedings tonight, as always, so that would ask that anyone, before you speak up nice and loud, tell us your name and address so we'll have a clear record as to who is speaking. If we have to revert to the tape recording in order to write a decision in this case. We have as evidence at the hearing a application by Thayer Nursery dated 9/26/2019, and we have a information sheet, I'll call it, seeking the amendment, and this is signed by Maggie Oldfield, putting together the pertinent application, pertinent facts relating to the application. I'm not going to read that at the present time. The board has received one piece of correspondence on this application, and it's a letter dated November 14, 2019, and it's from Matthew J. Dunn, an attorney on behalf of Mr. Philip Johanning and Mr. John Rowe at 23 Parkwood Drive. The letter's relatively short, so I think it would be helpful for the people present and perhaps for people in the audience if I read the entire letter rather than try to re-script it. Dear members of the Board of Appeals, this letter is submitted on behalf of Philip Johanning and John Rowe of 23 Parkwood Drive. It is our understanding that Thayer has submitted an application to you seeking to host a holiday boutique at its property at 270 Hillside Street every December for the next 5 years. While Mr. Johanning and Mr. Rowe do not oppose the Thayer's Nursery's right to apply for such a permit on a year-to-year basis, provided it is in compliance with the town zoning bylaws and the requirements of the contested renewed special permit that the planning board issued to Thayer on September 12, 2019, they do oppose Thayer's request to the board that it be for a 5-year period. In taking this position, Messrs. Henning and Rowe would like to point out that a year-to-year review of Thayer Nursery's request to host the holiday boutique will ensure that it complies with all, with the emphasis on the all, of the terms of the special permit to host the event. This is necessary because Thayer Nursery has proved repeatedly that such oversight is necessary based upon its long and documented history of flouting the requirements of the town's bylaws, this board's decisions, and the building commissioner's cease and desist letters, and even orders of the Norfolk Superior Court with respect to the use of the property. There's a footnote there that says, for a detailed list of Thayer's infractions, please see Mr. Johanning and Mr. Rowe's memorandum to the board, dated June 22nd, 2017, challenging the building commissioner's issuance of a special occupancy permit to Thayer Nursery, all of which is incorporated herein by reference. Accordingly, Mr. Johanning and Mr. O asked this board to take the same measured approach that it, presumably the board, has in the past by allowing Thayer to host a holiday boutique annually, subject to its demonstration that it is in full compliance with the town bylaws, that it has complied with the previous special permits issued by the Board of Appeals for this event, and that by its own conduct, Thayer Nursery has provided such a, quote, carrot and stick approach, quote unquote, that is needed to ensure compliance with these land use restrictions, and that such an outcome would not otherwise be possible if this board were to grant it a 5-year permit. In addition, Mr. Johanning and Mr. Rowe asked this board to condition its issuance of any permit to Thayer Nursery for the holiday boutique on the requirement that Thayer Nursery pay and secure a police detail to control vehicular and pedestrian traffic, and number 2, to enforce parking restrictions in the area of the day of the event. Historically, this event has drawn hundreds of people, and such a requirement is necessary to ensure the safety and welfare of attendees and residents. Very truly yours, Matthew J. Dunn, attorney for Philip Johanning and John Rowe. So we thank Mr. Dunn for his letter. Hello, can we help you? Yes. I should have said this is the airplane hearing, but I don't want to be funny. Okay, so Mrs. McGettrick, Marion McGettrick of, is it Crown Street? I think it is. Milton, Massachusetts, is representing the applicant, Thayer Nursery. Mrs. McGettrick, welcome back to the Board of Appeals. We're delighted to hear from you.
Thank you. And I am Marion McGettrick. I'm here to represent Thayer Nursery for this application. I'm not sure what the term you used to describe the prior permits, I'm not really familiar with, but I'm describing it as an amendment to the 1967 nursery use permit under Section 3A7D, which is how the nursery operates. And this is a nursery event. It's run by Maggie Oldfield, and it's particularly in conjunction with the fact that during the holiday season, Thayer Nursery is decorated for the holidays. They sell holiday wreaths and Christmas trees and other things. And so this event is a nice complement to the fact that the nursery is open for people to go up there and look around and decide if they want to get any holiday decorations. The event itself is a charitable event. I mean, it's not designed to make money. It doesn't make money. And if there is any profit, it's donated to a charitable cause. I'm not sure it's ever made a profit. It has been held, it's my understanding, for more than 10 years. It's been regulated by this, what I call an amendment to the nursery use permit, I think for about 5 years. So you have a pretty long track record now, and in my opinion, the Board of Appeals should look at how this permit has worked in the past 5 years. And it is my understanding that there hasn't been any noncompliance, that the board's conditions, for example, their condition that there be a traffic officer hired to regulate traffic has been complied with. And so under those circumstances, I would ask the board to consider whether it might be a better idea to grant this permit for more than 1 year. Because what you're doing now is you're having Thayer Nursery come back, you have to hold a public hearing. It's quite expensive because the advertising is very expensive. It's not a profitable event, it's a community event. And there hasn't been any noncompliance. There's no record of anything. If there had been a complaint, there'd be an opportunity to correct it. But there hasn't been anything like that. I think that, the way this event works is it's on a Sunday. Local craftspeople are invited to come and set up little booths, and they have some things there that they sell. There's no profit. And Thayer is open for business and is really beautifully decorated this time of the year. So it's a great place to visit. I think that you don't always have to grant a permit for a limit of 1 year because the town has the enforcement power at any time to revoke the permit. So if you had the event this year and in the course of the event there was a serious infraction, a violation of whatever conditions, or it got out of control, or there was something that really caused a problem, the building commissioner would be notified and he could make a decision to revoke the permit, he has the authority to do that. Thayer could come back and appeal to the Board of Appeals and say, gee, we'd still like to get it for next year. I think the board would be likely to say in that event, well, you can come back and try again next year, but that's the end of your 5-year or your 4-year or your 3-year permit. But I do think it makes more sense, it's more efficient. I don't think there's any record that shows that it's not justified. I think each time you've looked at this for 1 year, you've said, well, maybe we'll consider it next year. I think Thayer has asked several times to get this for more than 1 year. So that's my quick summary. That's the position Thayer's taking. These are just exactly what I just said, but it's a letter repeating the comments I just made. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a copy of this? Great. Do you need one back, Marion? Okay. Thank you. Let me just ask you a couple of questions, and not to give you a pop quiz, but can you tell us on average for the last 3 or 4 years how many people have been in attendance at this holiday boutique?
I can't tell you. I can ask Maggie Oldfield to estimate if she has some idea.
I feel like it's been declining. We have very little parking on the street.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Oldfield. Yeah, come on up, because they're not going to be able to pick you up on the microphone. And the TV production they get mad at me when you're not speaking in front of the microphone. And we're just talking general numbers. We're not talking anything specific here.
Maggie Oldfield Lang, 397 Hillside Street, for the past 50 years. So I don't know the exact number of people. We don't keep count. I know that foot traffic last year was down only because the weather was down. It is subject to nice weather. And if it's nice weather, people linger. Last year it rained. So when people came, they came, and then they left. I did.
Say 100, 150, 200? Because you're over a, what, a 7-year,
Well,
7-term, 10
yeah.
10 to 4, or something like that.
Yeah, so this is our 16th year, so my kids are 16 and 18, and so we started it as an opportunity for people to take their pictures with Santa, because I wanted my kids to have their picture with Santa up at the nursery. So probably maybe 150 to 200, but I don't really know.
Okay, do you serve food there? Or
Yeah, we give away hot dogs, snacks. We usually have somebody who owns their own sausage company, so they cook sausages.
Okay, did you say you had Santa Claus there?
Yep, we have Santa, we have the Grinch, we have a reindeer, we have Frosty.
Is it a real reindeer or a?
No, fuzzy reindeer. And so it's usually my kids' friends who dress up, and they're really quite great
Who
sports.
dresses up as Santa?
Last year was my nephew.
Okay.
He was a very young Santa.
Didn't Santa come? He came.
Yeah, he came.
did.
Yeah, he was very youthful.
You have entertainment?
We at times have the Milton High School chorus come.
Okay.
And it's, we actually donate money to the chorus program for their time. But that's kind of not every single year.
Okay, so that you haven't signed them up for this year?
No, not this year.
Have you agreed to sign up any entertainment for this year, or is it
No.
premature?
Yeah, not yet.
Okay. Virginia, do you have any questions of?
I was just wanting to know if there had been any complaints in the past years,
No, I have not heard from anyone.
and do we know of any? We haven't got any from the building department, so,
Not to my knowledge.
okay,
I mean, Thayer should have been notified if that happened.
right, okay.
So
Have you
that's
received
all I can tell you. I mean, no, I haven't been able to find any record of anything like that.
Have you received complaints from neighbors?
No, not directly.
Okay, has anybody been arrested at the holiday boutique?
No.
Okay, and you have, how many policemen that you normally retain?
So there's usually one, and his main goal is to make sure that if parking happens on the street, it's in such a way that vehicles can get by. We have, over 5 acres, so we usually have plenty of parking on site.
Okay, Mr. O'Brien?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, then I don't have any further questions. Mrs. McGetrick, do you have anything else you want to add?
That was interesting. I will say from my own experience, it's never been, I want it to be very successful if it happens. It's never been very crowded when I've been up there. So maybe I just haven't hit it at its busiest times. But I don't think it's a gigantic event. It's really, it's busier than perhaps a normal business day, would you say, this time of year? But that's probably
Yeah,
all.
but, Christmas is usually down to 2 weekends. And so those weekends would be busy anyway. But, so it's not, I don't think.
Are you able to tell us in a rough sense, for the last 2 or 3 years, how much money has been given to charity from this event? And maybe you can tell us some of the charities that have benefited.
So last year, I think it was around $250 went to the boosters, the Milton High School boosters. In the past, it's gone to the animal shelter. It's also gone, I think, to the Legion. So we try to choose different groups that we have a connection to. And so since my kids are at the high school and they play sports, we're giving back to the boosters.
Okay. And how about this year, if you get the permit? Do you know who's going to be
No,
the
we
beneficiary?
haven't, yeah, not yet.
Great. Let me, is there anybody present here this evening who may have a question of Ms. Solfield or Mrs. McGetrick? Okay, there's nobody present with questions. Does anybody want to speak in support of this application? Okay. Does anybody want to speak on this application, or? Okay. You want to flip a coin as to who's going to go first here? He's going to. Mr. John Rowe, please.
Good evening, John Rowe, 23 Parkwood Drive.
Good, I think you've been here before, Mr. Rowe.
Yes, many times.
Welcome back to the Board of Appeals.
First thing I want to bring up, and I'd like this to be added to the record, is that I was never notified of this hearing until today. And I believe that state statutes dictate that I should be notified as a direct abutter at least 14 days before the hearing. So I just received this in the mail today. Can we get a copy of the postmark on
Sure you can.
on the envelope that it was postmarked at 3 p.m. November 12th, and I received it today in the mail on November 14th.
Can I just ask you one question, sir? What's the basis for you saying you're supposed to receive this 14 days in advance? Because the statute that I read didn't say that.
It's what my attorney said. So,
Okay.
so is there no requirement for me to be notified prior to the day of the hearing?
It
You know,
says,
because, go ahead.
the statute doesn't have a time limit attached to it. That's all I'm saying.
Right.
If you know a statute that says you're supposed to get 14 days' notice in advance, I'd put it in the decision if you wanted me to. The record here is that this was advertised on October 31st, and it was posted in the clerk's office shortly after that date, and there was a second publication on November 7th, and that I think this notice to abutters, it would have been nice to have been sent early, to be frank about it.
Thank you. And, you know, we've had this issue with the planning board, that they have had hearings that they did not
Really?
notify us, and my attorney put the town on notice a year and a half ago, saying that you must notify us by mail 14 days before any hearing takes place.
Well,
So that's on record with the town's attorney. I guess I just don't understand when I file an appeal, my expectation is that I pay the postage for the notifications to go out, and the expectation is that the town sends this out to abutters with at least 14 days' notice. So apparently my attorney is incorrect, that it's not a
Oh,
requirement.
I don't know. Matthew's a wonderful attorney. I admire him. He's a very good guy, and he's smart. But the statute, which I researched this afternoon when I understood this issue came up, which is General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 11, merely says that the abutters and others have to receive notice, which shall be sent by mail, postage prepaid, period. And it doesn't say the date, it doesn't say 14 days in advance.
Doesn't say before the hearing or after?
Well, you did receive it before
I
the
did.
hearing.
I received it today, this
So,
afternoon.
You know, in that sense, it's not late, but it's.
not
certainly-
timely.
It's certainly not early, and it may not be as timely as it should be. And,
Fair enough.
I was kind of astounded at that, because I thought that the statute should have a particular time period in there. And I looked at some of the cases. I'm not going to bother you with
Fair enough.
with
I
cases.
just want,
And
I
they,
just think it's unfair to the abutters. There's nobody here except for Phil and me.
well, it is. It should be sent earlier. I agree with you entirely. And I have to say that we've seen you a lot, and we've seen Mr. Joe Henning a lot on all of these matters, and I don't think we've ever had any instances where people received notice by posting on such short notice before a hearing. And we're going to do our best to see that never happens again.
Thank you.
Because we don't want to inconvenience anybody. But on the other hand, if you read the decided cases, they place a lot of emphasis on the fact of written publication in the newspaper, as well as posting with the town clerk as kind of determinative. And if you come in late and say, well, I never get noticed by register or here by regular mail, there's a burden on somebody to say, well, why didn't you read the newspaper and see the ad or check with the town clerk? But the simple answer is we've never done this to you before, and we won't do it again.
The planning board has.
Well,
And that's why it's a sore subject with us, because we put the town on notice.
You may, I
need
don't
to
want to
be-
interrupt you, but it may very well be that the rules for the planning board may differ, and there may be a rule that says the planning board notices have to be 14 days in advance. The Massachusetts legislature is not always the best in its drafting of statutes. So maybe there's with all due respect to Mr. O'Brien, who deals with these folks all the time. So there may actually be a different statute there, and since I don't do planning board work, I don't know. So why don't you continue with
Yeah.
your presentation?
Okay, so I'd just like to point out that I do not believe that the zoning bylaws of the town allow for commercial activity in Residence A and AA district. This Christmas or holiday boutique sponsors or has people selling crafts, selling trinkets, if you will, or presents that are not related to the nursery. And so this is really people setting up shop at their nursery to sell their goods. And that is not allowed under any of the special permits, and it's not allowed under the zoning bylaws. I understand that people may enjoy going to the nursery to buy their Christmas tree and to do some Christmas shopping, and therefore I will not protest if you issue a one-day permit for just this year. However, I do protest if you issue a permit for more than 1 year, more than one time, simply because I don't think that it's even allowed by the zoning bylaws.
Does it make any difference if the profits that are received by Thayer from the sale of artifacts, let's call them, rather than trinkets, that they're dedicated to charity.
Thayer isn't selling them.
Oh.
They have outside vendors come in. I believe that Thayer sells tables to them. The vendors come in, they pay for a table.
So they get a
to
fee
sell
for the
their-
table.
Yes, to sell their wares. And so, if we're gonna talk about, accounting and, what the take is, I don't think that this board wants to get involved with any, business like that.
I'm not sure we're capable of doing that.
Yeah, so, people are not in business to give the money to charity. This has always been advertised that they have multiple vendors on site, artisans, I don't believe that that all the revenue goes to charity.
Okay, well, that's where you didn't want us to go, so maybe you shouldn't go there. Why don't you go on with your
All
your
right, so,
presentation?
anyway, also, this is a one-day permit to allow this boutique or fair, which generally there are hundreds and hundreds of people that show up. And if you go back into your records, one year you issued a permit and they were supposed to have a detail, and they didn't have a paid detail. So we came here the next year, and their excuse was that they couldn't find anybody, so they didn't have a police detail. So that's documented in the ZBA's records, and I think it's important to know that there are no sidewalks on Hillside Street nor Forest Street, and the roads are very narrow, and in order for this to take place and for the citizens to be safe, as well as the patrons of this fair to be safe, there has to be strict compliance with a police detail, and probably you need two, and there needs to be signs. It needs to be posted on Forest Street and Hillside Street that there's no parking. And if you go back to Thayer Nursery's special permits, in the 1967 permit, it clearly states that there shall be no parking on Forest Street and no parking on Hillside Street. And when you have this many people, and this amount of traffic, it's inevitable that they park on Hillside Street and Forest Street. And it causes, a traffic issue.
Okay.
And we've seen that every year. So, in conclusion, I don't believe it should be allowed. However, I won't protest it if you issue a one-year permit.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much. We appreciate you coming. Let me just see if my colleagues have any questions. You have any questions, Mr. Rowe? Frank?
Not at this time, Mr.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for
So,
coming.
will you put this in the record?
Oh, absolutely.
All right.
In fact, what we'll do is, we'll keep that as part of the record, and we'll give you a copy back, or do you want us to put a copy in the record and you can keep that?
Either way, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Make a copy of that.
Mr. Johanning, do you want to be heard?
Sure. Great.
Welcome back to the Board of Appeals.
Thanks. I feel like it's my winter home. At any rate, my name is Phil Johanning. I live at 23 Parkwood Drive. I only have one thing to comment on, and that is about complaints. I don't believe that there have never been complaints. Maybe there have not been complaints directly to Maggie and Josh, but there have been complaints. We did not have adequate time to prepare anything because we were unaware of this. John travels constantly, so he's not reading the Milton Times, I guarantee you. So it's hard for him to stay in touch, and I didn't see it. So, That's it. But I would have seen a letter if it had come to my house. I recall, and I don't remember how many years ago, that we got started with this when John and I complained that there was extensive parking on Parkwood Drive, which is our street, on both sides of the street. That no longer happens, but it was a complaint that we made. And I made specifically a complaint to this board because I felt that it was impossible for emergency vehicles to utilize our street on that day with parking on both sides. So, you know, I think that's one of the strongest complaints that I recall having made. But I do know that I made it, and I made it before this board. You know, like John said, we don't object to a one-day meeting. And so no one should be thinking that we're the Grinches that stole Christmas. What we're saying is we prefer to see some control over the process going forward. And I don't think it's overly harmful to apply for a permit and to be granted a permit, because we will never object to it year over year. We just won't. We don't necessarily care for it because Maggie doesn't exactly notify the neighbors in advance. I guess you can say, well, it's the first or second Sunday in December. We're not asked if that would be an inconvenience. You know, there might be some latitude on when it could be held, and neighbors could be contacted. She doesn't necessarily have to go with the neighbors, but if we are all notified and we can make other plans that day, that would be great. It is a residential neighborhood. We have rights as residents. We have rights to peaceful enjoyment of our homes. And I do object to what Marion said when she said that it's an extension of the special permit. It is not. It is not an extension. The special permit does not mention Christmas boutiques. It does not mention selling of crafts, et cetera. I remember before it was furniture and crafts and jewelry, and that's not mentioned in the special permit. This is not an extension, for sure. This is something that justifiably has to be requested and granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals. And again, we don't object to it year over year. You know, every year if they object, we'll stay home. We don't need to come. But it's unless we have a specific complaint. And the idea that the town is prepared on that Sunday to have Mr. Prondak come over is outrageous. He's not working. How do I reach Mr. Prondak on a Sunday afternoon? How would that be? Maybe I can send a carrier pigeon. I don't know. So it's ridiculous in my mind to think that we have an enforcement mechanism. We don't. And that's another reason why it's important that we can have this mechanism for airing our complaints, having the town weigh them, and then make a decision about the special permit. And I would urge this board to maintain the idea of a one-year special permit for this event. We don't object. It's a hassle. It's a bother, but you know, we'll allow it to go unimpeded, provided that a one-year special permit is granted. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Johanna? I don't think so, but Frank?
No, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Johanning. Is there anybody else here who wishes to be heard on this application? Either for or against, or has any questions? Okay, there's no such person wants to be heard. Mrs. McGettrick, are you content with your presentation?
Yeah, just as clarification, it doesn't matter that much, but I described this as an amendment, because when you come back in and you want to do something and you're a nursery and you have a permit, you're saying to the board, we'd like to do this, and we consider it an incidental use, or whatever, however you choose to describe it. And I don't know how else the board could treat this except as an amendment. It's called a minor amendment, 1 year to allow a one-day event at the nursery, and that's what this has been for. So, no, I agree, it's not an extension of the original permit, it's not in the language of the original permit. It's the nursery use that has the permit and is applying for the amendment. Anyway, technically, I'm not sure how the board has treated it in the past, and I'm not trying to put thoughts or words in if they weren't there, if that wasn't your intention. In other respects, well, you know, of course, the primary purpose of being here is to ask for permission to have the one-day event this year, and it happens this year, it will be the 2nd December, because the first Sunday in December is the day after, is 2 days after Thanksgiving or something, 3 days. And that's not a good time to do it because people are away. So for this year, the request certainly is for the 2nd Sunday in December. I stand behind my remarks about compliance because the last several years, see, that the point is, I understand that on a Sunday, Mr. Joe Henning might not be available, but if there's been a problem, it should be reported.
Mr. Prondak.
I'm sorry.
All right.
Sorry.
Mr. Joe,
I
Mr.
just promoted you.
Mr. Joe Henning is available.
It's not a promotion.
They might like to trade places, though.
He doesn't want to be available.
I
He
know.
wants
All right,
to be
well,
left alone.
We'll back up a little. Mr. Prondak, of course, should be off on Sunday, so yeah, he's not there that day. But if there's a problem, it should be reported to Mr. Prondak, because then it becomes a record. You get it. He can do follow-up, because particularly if you grant a permit for more than 1 year, it's clearly a reason to consider revoking the multi-year permit. But that will be the decision of the board, and I appreciate your consideration of both parts of this request. So we would like the permit for this year if possible. I appreciate the remark saying that you wouldn't object to that. And if you would consider more than 1 year, certainly you could try 2 years, but whatever you think. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. McGettrick. So we'll end the evidence portion of this hearing, and we'll open this up for discussion unless the board members have some other thing to say. So, Mr. O'Brien, do you want to be heard first?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the second one of these that I've sat on, and these are not pleasant hearings. And you guys have to figure this out. You can't keep coming up here. It's your right to do so, but, you know, it's a long life ahead of you, and you guys have got to figure this out. So we'll just leave that at that. On this thing, so here's my thinking. One of the concerns I have about a 5-year special permit is the fact that, quite honestly, we made a mistake. It was human error in terms of the notices not going out in a fashion that we normally send them out in. And one of the things that we take pride in as a board is we try to do stuff above board, if you will. And when we make a mistake, first of all, we admit it, we made a mistake on this one. I think the fact of the matter is that the most interested parties ultimately got notice, so the people that are most interested in it are here. So it's apparently a mistake that was cured. My concern, however, is that if you go beyond a 1-year special permit, that somehow our mistake, and it's our mistake, we own it, our mistake would disenfranchise other people who may have been here except that they didn't receive notice in a timely fashion. On the other hand, the merits of it are such that I don't see a substantive reason for denying a 5-year special permit. I just don't. Whether it's a 1-year special permit or a 5-year special permit, I think that there are enforcement mechanisms in place. There are complaints that can be made. I think the abutters who have concerns here have been before this board with complaints in the past and are very well versed in the process and apparently ably represented. So I don't see the downside from that point of view in a 5-year permit. 5-year permit also allows people to plan from a business point of view. On the other hand, from a charitable point of view, in a liquor license situation, we give one-day liquor licenses to people. So now I'm going to land the airplane here. So kind of laid out the thoughts that are floating around in my head. The way that I come down on this is I would be supportive of a one-year extension of the special permit, and that's because I feel that it's necessary for the board to bend over backwards from a fairness point of view because we messed up with the notice provision. And my feeling is that if we go 5 years, if there had been not an error with the notice with giving of notice to all of the abutters, I would definitely vote for 5 years. But because, frankly, we screwed up and made a mistake, that's why I feel the cure for that is a 1 year, and then next time around we make sure that all the notice stuff gets handled in strict conformance with ideas of fundamental fairness. I think Mr. Johanning and Mr. Rowe, they have a point, and I'm concerned about, I want to make sure that the board remains above board and continues to have a reputation for being fair and being in a position to give people appropriate notice. Mr. Chairman, it's probably a long-winded speech. I apologize for my fellow board members for it.
Mrs. King.
Well, it was good information in it. I think that I agree with you, Frank. And on the notice issue. But I'm wondering if we can, if you would be comfortable with the cure of a 5-year special permit that allows for canceling it if all of the conditions are not met. So that, it could go 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 years, or 5 years, depending upon the conditions being met. And I think that is what is concerning the neighbors that have spoke here tonight. I understand that they would like it every year, and I wish everything had been different so that we wouldn't have to worry about the notice issue. But I think we might be able to make everybody happy by having some I guess they have to be specific conditions that are met in order to allow that permit to keep extending to that 5th year. It's a thought.
Have you concluded your
I
remarks?
concluded.
Okay. My view of this is I think that it's unfortunate that the mailing notices to the abutters was so late. I think it was timely as a matter of law, but it was timely by 1 day, and that's not the way things should happen. I don't think people are adversely affected, but on the other hand, I acknowledge Mr. O'Brien's concerns here that there may be somebody out there who arrives home in the next week or something and finds a notice in their mailbox, and maybe it should have been there a couple of weeks earlier. The law provides a remedy in that instance if they wanted to challenge the special permit, no matter how long we assign it. But that's not the way we want to run a railroad, and we don't want to put people in that type of situation. They shouldn't have to run out and hire lawyers unless they're a lawyer themselves, and go through that costly enterprise when, if they had received timely notice, they'd be at the hearing and they could express their own views without hiring private counsel. I think we also have to look at Thayer Nursery and the original special permit and the so-called amended special permit, all of which is a matter of some public controversy. And so I think if there's a challenge in the courts as to whether the most recent special permit is valid or not, or is being properly enforced or interpreted, I don't think it's the proper precedent to give to Thayer a 5-year special permit when the original special permit on which we're relying may have defects in it that a court may point out in the next 2 years, 3 years, whenever the land court ever decides these issues, and many times they don't. It's a frustrating process for everyone in that circumstance. So I think I would, and I realize that if we gave a 5-year special permit, we can revoke it the next year. We have a hearing and revoke it in the present year. We can do a lot of different things. But I think that in light of all of the circumstances that we have in front of us here, it's more prudent to restrict this special permit, which is unopposed for a 1-year basis, to a 1-year basis. And I don't think we're being held up by Mr. Rowe or Mr. Johanning in doing that. I think, I didn't know that's their position. I thank them for that position. Nobody is labeling anybody a Grinch. But that's the way we've been doing it for the last 8 or 10 years. Maybe it's 5 years, I guess. And so under the present circumstances, I don't think it's reasonable or prudent to go to the 5 years at the present time. Now, I understand Mrs. McGettrick's eloquent arguments and all of that, and maybe if the land court comes down with a decision, but I don't see anything coming within a year or two, but who knows, upholding the special permit, the 2019, I guess it's an amended special permit, then maybe the board would have more flexibility in granting a longer term. And how does I don't think it helps anybody here. Everyone's acting in good faith. I don't think it helps anyone by making a substantial increase in the duration of the special permit only to engender objections and lawsuits. What sense does that make? I don't want Mr. Rowe and Mr. Johanning to have to spend a lot of money on Mr. Dunn. He's a terrific lawyer, and I think he probably charges accordingly. And why should they have to do that if they're willing to assent to a 1-year special permit? We've been doing that all along, and it just to me, I think sometimes you have to take a step back, take a couple of breaths, say what makes common sense here for the benefit of everybody, and in my mind, that's a 1-year special permit with the conditions as usual that we put in the other special permit, and with the conditions here about no parking on Forest or Hillside Street, and talking about having police supervision. And my view of that, I don't know whether 1 policeman is enough or 2, but I would say something to the effect that I would leave that in the discretion of the police chief, whoever does that. And they know what is happening there, and if they think they need 2, then that's fine. If they think you need 1, that's fine. I think that's more of a police decision as to what's reasonable. So that's how I would tend to handle this. Do you have any further comments, Mr. O'Brien?
No, I would agree with your reasoning.
Okay, Mrs. Kane, what do you want to say?
Convince me as well.
There's no easy answer to it, but it's if the answer is we go to a 5-year because we think we don't want to have hearings every year, and if you force the abutters, Rowe and Johanning, to bring litigation, everyone in the town's going to think we're crazy. What are we doing here? It's everyone is cooperating and everyone here is going to participate either in this boutique or have the inconvenience of the boutique taking place. So there's a yin and the yang. Everyone's kind of in the same boat, and inducing litigation where the abutters are reasonable in their suggestion for a one-year special permit is the way I want to go, and that's how I'm going to vote. So, all those in favor of granting a one-year special permit to Thayer Nursery with the conditions about parking and the police presence and the other special conditions that were put in the other previous special permits, please say aye.
Aye.
So,
Okay,
I
thank you
guess
very much.
congratulations, Marion. Maybe it's,
Just a point of clarification. Their nursery operates under a nursery permit.
Yes.
And it operates under a landscaping permit.
yes,
The permit on appeal is the landscaping permit.
I think that's
This
right.
application's under the nursery permit, so in terms of writing a decision, I think it's important to, I mean, that has always been my understanding if that's how this.
No, I
application-
think that's absolutely right. I think,
I'm not disregarding your, I mean, I think all your comments are well taken. I appreciate them. And under the circumstances, we're very happy to get the one-year permit, and we'll come back next year. Who knows? Maybe things will look different then. Maybe they won't.
maybe you can extend an invitation to Mr. Rowe and Mr. Johanning to attend the fair and maybe have a picture with Santa.
You're always invited, absolutely.
Could I ask a question?
Yes, sir, you can. Question.
I thought that this was a special permit for the event itself. I thought that the town had the right to issue a special permit for something of this kind. I didn't
We
think
do.
there was an amendment or an adjunct to any existing permit. I thought it was a freestanding, separate, special permit for this event. Isn't that what
I
it
think if you
is?
look at last year's permit, that's what it is.
I think it may very well be, because to be frank about it,
That's my misunderstandings. I don't know.
yeah, because I don't recall having
It may be the different.
any hearings within the last year or two on a special permit for the landscaping aspect of this. I don't, it's all shifted away with the landscaping activities.
And it's not part of landscaping.
It isn't, oh, it definitely is not, that's exactly right. So we'll issue it as an independent special permit. Okay? Thanks, folks. I don't think we need it.
No,
Okay,
because
then
I'm not
take,
gonna use it
then
against
you
you.
take it back. Well, it doesn't make any difference.
Thank you.
We would have eaten it if you were going to use it against us.
Good
Thank
night.
you. Okay, good night.
John, do you want me to write this?
Sure. Good, thank you. Thank you, Frank. Sorry we took so long on that, folks. I thought you were all going to get an invitation to the Christmas bazaar, but maybe you're on your own. Okay, let's handle, Frank, why don't we make sure that you've got at least one of these, yeah, in there. Okay, great. We're going to handle our second hearing. This is the 7:45 hearing at 8:23. And it's the application of John H. Rhee, dated September 5, 2019. Is Mr. and Mrs. Rhee here? So good, come on up. Why don't you make yourself comfortable, get your papers in order, and I'll do some formalities, and then we can rock and roll, okay? So this is the application of Mr. Rhee. It's dated September 5, 2019, seeking a special permit pursuant to Section 4 of the zoning bylaw. This property is located at 115 Warren Avenue, and it's in a Residence C district. This is one of many recent applications we have where the residence is a pre-existing non-conforming use, having been built prior to the adoption of the Milton zoning bylaw. It just shows you how old the town Milton is. And how this change in the bylaw makes it a lot easier to handle this type of modification, because previously you had to get a variance, and now this relief can be granted under special permit standards, which are much more flexible and I think forgiving with people who have older houses and are trying to improve them so that they can live in the modern age. So here the applicant is requesting to build a 15-foot 3-inch by 8 by 8 one-story addition to the rear of the property. The plan that's filed with this application shows that the main body of the house is located 8 feet from the side property line, and also portions of the house are located in such a position that the setback on the left side is only 9 feet when 10 feet are required under the zoning bylaw. The addition would obviously increase the non-conforming nature of the building, and therefore the question before the board is whether we can grant a special permit, because this proposed change is not more detrimental to the neighborhood than what currently exists. My name's John Leonard, Frank O'Brien, Virginia Donahue King. We're going to have as evidence for this particular hearing the September 5, 2019 application signed by Mr. Ree. We have a September 4, 2019 denial letter, which is always fascinating to me because the denial letter is issued before you file the application, but that's, I guess, a matter of coincidence. We have the plot plan of the property by Michael Paul Antonino, a registered land surveyor. It's dated, well known to the board, June 1st, 2019. We have some house addition plans in multiple sheets from architects in Boston. We have an extension signed by the applicants, and we've received some correspondence here from interested persons, and I think all of these assents say the same thing, so I'm just going to read one of them, and then you read the names for the others. So the first one is November 10th, 2019. This one is from Melissa and Joshua Hanson of 119 Warren Avenue. They live immediately adjacent to this subject property where John Ree and Susan Koch Wesser, or is it Vesser?
Vaser.
Vaser, okay. I still have a little German left in me. Proposed to extend the back entryway and join the kitchen and basement entrances to their house. The project extends to the back of the house for a few feet along the same lot line. I understand they need to obtain a variance. Well, that's not quite right. They need a special permit because the house sits close to the lot line. John and Susan have shared their drawings and plans and answered all of our questions regarding the project. And the purpose of this letter is to let the board know of our support for this proposed project. And we have a second letter dated again, it's November 10th, from Michael Nguyen of 111 Warren Avenue in Milton, saying the same thing as Melissa and Joshua Hanson. And we have another letter, November 10th. You had a busy day on November 10th, didn't you? This is the same letter, and this one is signed by Pete. Is it Pula, P-U-L-A?
Yes,
Pula.
that's right.
Okay, I didn't know whether it was Pulge, P-U-L-G, or an A. Peter Pula and Amy Pula, they're of 11 Abaddon Road in Milton, and they likewise are sent to this application. So we'll have all of that as evidence.
There are three butters to our property. So two are on either side, and one is in the back, right? So that's why there's three.
Okay, so you've captured all of the
All of them,
candidates
yes.
with their assents. Well, thank you for doing that, because that's very important, and if you spoke to Mrs. McGettrick, who just left, that would probably be the first piece of advice that she would give you, other than filing your
And
application.
they were all
and
very
paying the
supportive.
fee.
They were all very supportive.
Why don't you tell us just a little bit about your house, the application, what you intend to do,
Yeah, so
and why the board should
So
approve
I brought a
this?
whole packet for you, but maybe pictures could tell more
Great.
words. But
We
so
love
this,
pictures.
I believe you already have this, so this is primarily what we're looking to do. And I just wanted to share some pictures with you because it shows, actually,
They're all the same picture, right?
well, sort of, this one, right, shows you the existing stairs. This is sort of the existing structure with the stairs here in place. And what we're proposing to do is we want to enclose the same area as the stairs. It's really about extending where the stairs are. We're not going beyond the stairs. We're just simply, it's the same area. We're not going beyond that, but it's following this wall, which is basically 9 feet from the property line, right? And I understand that according to the building codes, the revised building codes, it's to be within compliance, it's 10 feet from the property line. So what we're asking for is a special permit to allow us to build sort of on the same footprint as the stair. And it doesn't go any further than the edge of the stair. That's what this is, right here.
Okay.
And then the proposal here is to move the entrance of our house to the center of, over to where our basement is. And so we'll have stairs going into the house, the main house, from the interior. And then the stairs will be going downstairs, but it'll be covered. And let's see.
We're thinking about our elder years and putting the stairs inside instead of
You
outside.
don't have that much foresight, I hope.
Here's
Not
the
at your
elevation.
age,
Here's the
cut it out.
finished elevation. You can see it's completely enclosed. There's a door to come into the house from here. So these exterior stairs go away.
Okay.
We're proposing.
Yeah, and basically what happened, we redid the basement. We used to have a bulkhead, and the building inspector said we couldn't use a bulkhead anymore, and so we had to build that other little bump out over the basement entrance. So what we'd like to do, also for aesthetic reasons, is connect those two, so it's not those two funny, or end up with two doors into the back of the house right next to each other.
Actually, Joe Prondak was the inspector at the time, and partially it was because we had two younger children. When we did our basement renovation, it was because of safety reasons, and I understood that. The bulkhead doors were very difficult for little kids to open up in case of an emergency. But now our kids are in high school and middle school, so I don't think that's going to be a problem. But we want to, as my wife pointed out, we want to incorporate these two structures to make it one. And we wanted to get the special permit from you, just simply to extend, this is primarily what we're trying to do, this is the existing wall, we just want to extend it out to the same length as where the stairs are. It's no different, it's really almost enclosing the stairs.
And your children are still living with you in the house?
Yeah.
Okay. And do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, I don't really have anything else. That's primarily all we wanted to do. And I know Joe Prondak has said if you really didn't want to go through this process, you just pull it in 1 foot and this wouldn't be an issue. But aesthetically,
I want a pantry.
aesthetically,
I want that foot for
Okay.
our cereal.
aesthetically, by pulling in a foot, it just kind of
Yeah.
looks a little odd, a little strange.
Well, if you're going to this length, sometimes the foot can be important. Okay, let me see if my colleagues have any questions. Mrs. King, do you have any questions of the applicant?
No, just assuming that it's going to be consistent design with the current house?
I mean, yeah.
No, we're not looking at that. Well, that was one of the things my neighbor said. They wanted to know if it was going to be consistent with the design. It wasn't going to be some odd structure, and we have very limited space. Our lot is very small. You can only do so much.
What's the size of the lot? I don't recall offhand.
It's around 5,000 square feet.
5,000 square feet, okay, okay. Mr. O'Brien, please.
The purpose of the addition is a kitchen renovation,
Yeah.
kitchen and pantry.
Well, so currently that bump out is unheated, so it would be, yeah.
And is it your intention to construct this in substantial compliance with the plans that you filed with the board today?
I mean, that's why we hired the
Say
architect.
yes, please.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Thank you.
Let me just ask you a practical question. Well, I guess I have to do several other things first. Let me just cover the record here. So have you completed your presentation?
Yes, I
Yes,
am.
okay. So other than the three assents that we have from the abutters, is there anybody here present who wishes to speak in support of this application? Okay, there's no such person present. Is there anybody here who has any questions of the applicants or wishes to speak in opposition to this special permit? We have a lot of head shaking. No. Okay, so we'll end the evidence of this portion, except one thing. When do you intend to do this work? Did you intend to do it in the spring, or?
It looks like probably it's going to have to be the spring. I don't think, not much is going to go on during the wintertime. We were hoping to do this earlier and file the permit, and I met with, inspectional services this summer, and we were hoping to move this quickly, but people went on vacation, and, it just takes a little bit longer. We just want to be able to get this sort of
We're thinking
special
spring.
permit so that we can, so there's no red flags, so that we can move forward.
Sure, okay. So with that having been said, you have nothing further to add. All those in favor of granting the special permit on this application, please say aye.
Aye.
So congratulations, you've got your special permit.
Okay.
What we have to do here, since you're not represented by council, we have to prepare the
You can keep
special
this
permit.
if you want.
We'll have that as part of the record. You have to circulate it, get it signed by 3
Can
people.
I
It
give you
usually
this
takes
packet
3.
instead of this? Here, let me give you this. It's probably the same as, yeah, that's fine.
It's going to take 3 or 4 weeks.
Okay. that's
Okay,
fine.
and then Ms. Sutton here will file it with the town clerk, and even though your application here has not been opposed by anybody, there's a 20-day appeal period. Once the appeal period expires with no challenge, you're going to get your special permit, and Mr. Prondak or Beverly will help you. You've got to record that with the Registry of Deeds. Very, very important, okay? So that there's a record of the special permit, and that will make the special permit legally effective.
So we record it with the Registry of Deeds?
Yeah, you record it,
Okay.
but
And then does it expire, or it's allowed? I
Well-
mean, we want to go in the spring, but then if something happened and it took another year,
my memory is, and I haven't done one of these in a while, is that we normally suggest that the construction project be started within a year, and then completed in some type of reasonable fashion in the discretion of the building inspector, okay? It's my recollection here, but the first hearing is still in my mind, that if you're not able to do that, if you're not able to meet that condition, you should come in before the year is expired, and I think we can grant a 6-month extension. Is that just for variances, or is that applicable for special permits as well? Do you remember?
You know what, this is actually the first case I've sat on where we've done this through special permit. Typically with a variance, it's start construction within 1 year, and if you run into difficulties, come in before the expiration of that 1 year, and you can get an extension as a matter of right.
And it's by statute, I think, for 6 months. I just don't recall specifically whether that exact language applies to special permits, so that I would suggest to you that if you have any trouble whatsoever, the economy tips upside down,
We've just heard stories of begging for contractors.
Well, or your contractor bails on you, or you become ill, or maybe your kid's accepted to Stanford and you need to spend $100,000 a year on that. Come in and talk with Mr. Prondak well before the 1 year expires, so that we can make sure your special permit is protected. If you do nothing and you let the year expire, then you're back at square one,
Save the packet.
and you don't want to do that. Okay?
Okay,
All
thank
right.
you.
Congratulations.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for coming.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, Jenny's taking. Sure, come on up. Just give us a second to take some notes.
Whenever you're ready.
No, just 1 second. We don't write down who's preparing the decision. We have an awful circumstance trying to find out where the file is.
Fair enough. I'm in a similar boat with this one, so I appreciate all of your efforts in advance.
Okay. Okay, great, thank you.
Is that the plot plan?
Okay, we're going to call to order our third and final hearing of the evening. This is the application of Amy and Matthew Zala,
Correct.
and you're Matthew.
I am Matthew.
Okay.
Yes.
Dated September 9, 2019, and filed with the board, seeking a special permit according to Section 4, just like the last case. Here, the applicants are proposing to build a 12-foot by 32-foot shed dormer at the rear of their home at 313 Elliott Street in Residence C District. This home was built in 1925 as a single-family house and is dimensionally pre-existing, non-conforming with respect to its location on the lot. We have a plot plan showing the building is located 6 feet 2 inches from the left side property line, when the bylaw requires 10 feet. Architectural plans show that the new shed dormer would create a third story on this building, when 2.5 stories are normally allowed, and would be 6 feet 2 inches from the left side property line, when 10 feet are normally required. The bylaw, this section 4, provides that pre-existing non-conforming structures can be replaced or reconstructed or altered if it's going to be used for a purpose substantially similar to the original building, if authorized by a special permit by the Board of Appeals, and the board is satisfied the modifications will not substantially increase any detrimental or injurious effect to the building or the use in the neighborhood. So, that's the advertisement. We have the application. It's dated 9/19, 2/19. I think it's 9/19, but it could be 7/19. I say that because, you know whether that's 7 or 9?
7, I believe.
7. I was going to say so because we wouldn't have Mr. Prondak denying the application a full 2 months.
My poor penmanship,
Yeah,
most
yeah.
likely.
Yeah, that's what it is. So, so it's denied on the 2nd of July 2019, and the application is filed 7/19. Okay. So we'll have the denial letter as part of the hearing. We'll have a plot plan of the land by Kelly Engineering Group. It's dated June 27th, 2019, shows the existing dwelling and the proposed improvements. We've got also some plans from McGrath Architects in multiple sheets showing the proposed improvements. The sheets are A1 through A6, and they are dated. This is a test on the eyes. May 17, 2019 is my guesstimate as to what we have. So, let's see. Ah, okay. Good. We have 3 pieces of correspondence regarding this application. They're all different. The first is a letter in email fashion to the senior principal clerk of the board. Dear Beverly, please accept this communication as my full support for the attic project proposed by Matt and Amy Zawa at 313 Milton, Elliott Street in Milton. Amy and Matt have been wonderful neighbors for 10 years, and they maintain their property to the highest standard. I live at 6 Valley Road Extension, just behind their home, and our backyard areas abut each other. I know that Matt and Amy are committed to the town of Milton and our wonderful neighborhood we are fortunate to live in, and that the extra space they seek to create is to support their growing family. Building out this space rather than simply relocating to a different house in a different neighborhood or a different town shows their commitment to Milton and Elliott Street area. Other home improvements projects by Matt and Amy that they have taken on have been executed with the utmost respect for the neighborhood and abutters, and I have no doubts whatsoever that the project will receive the same care. And it's signed Tanya Gray, Director of Finance, Barbara Lynch Collective, and it's got your business address. Now, is that the Barbara Lynch restaurant chain?
She's the financial officer for that.
Oh, she's a good person to know.
She's a good neighbor.
I bet.
We also went to the same college, which is kind of different years.
Oh, and what school was that?
Connecticut College.
Okay, great. And does Tanya give cooking classes?
She doesn't cook,
She
but
doesn't?
she throws a great party.
Okay, well, wow, this is getting more interesting. We have a second letter at September 28th, 2019, from Janet McCloskey, the owner of 317 Elliott Street. She says, my name is Janet McCloskey. I've owned the property at 317 Elliott Street since 1986. I'm located directly next door to the left side of 313 Elliott Street. I wish to share my thoughts regarding this application. I've had the opportunity to review the project design and discuss the details with them, and I'm very comfortable with the proposed changes as laid out in the design. We have been neighbors for over a decade, and they have done a tremendous job to maintain and improve their property over that time. I view this project as a necessary change to allow them to expand their home for growing family needs. The Zalas have been outstanding neighbors and assets to the Milton community. It's my sincere hope they continue to stay not only in Milton, but right next door to my home. Please let me know if you have any questions or need additional information. Signed, Janet McCloskey. So we thank Mrs. McCloskey for her letter. We have a letter from Dan, in email form from Dan Walsh. It's dated November 14, 2019, to Mrs. Sutton, a popular lady tonight. My name is Dan Walsh, and I live right next door on the right to Matt and Amy's home in 309 Elliott Street. I'd like to voice my support for them to improve their wonderful home. Please call me today if you have any need for further verification as it relates to this matter. Best regards, Dan Walsh. So we thank Mr. Walsh for taking the time and effort for submitting all of this stuff. So a long way of saying welcome to the Board of Appeals. Why don't you tell us about your application and why the board should.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Mrs. Sutton for her help with putting this all together. So we've been before the board previously for a small addition we put at the back of our home, which was a new screen and porch and a mudroom. So that was the first improvement that we had the pleasure of dealing with this board on, where we received a variance because it was a little bit longer in the back than the previous iteration. And so for this project, you've seen the plans, you understand the project, but I just wanted to give some actual site context. So here's some photos. Photos are always helpful. So that's an aerial of our property, and then this is pictures as you walk around the house from Elliott Street around the back, so you can get a sense of what the property looks like, because the decision like this requires your understanding of the back of the house, more importantly than anything. So as kind of described, and you can see from the plans, we are looking to do a shed dormer on the 3rd floor of the home. It'll be an opportunity to create an additional bedroom for my wife and I, as well as a bathroom, separate from the 2nd floor where we currently live. We have 4 bedrooms on our 2nd floor. Currently, my son and daughter occupy 2, and my wife and I are in the 3rd. And then the 4th is a small bedroom that isn't conducive to living. So we use that as a closet. It's at the back of the house, and you can see from the porch at the back of the house, there's a door there as well. So we made that porch habitable. We put a door in the closet room. So I'm telling you all this so you know that the closet room will become a stairwell up to this 3rd floor. So everything will be enclosed in the house, and there's proper egress, et cetera. So it meets all building code standards, et cetera. And then the benefit of this is my wife and I will move up there, and then my son will be allowed to move into what is now our bedroom, because he has a very small bedroom currently, so he'll have more space. My daughter's 2, my son is 7, so we have a long way to go as it relates to living in our house.
How do you look so well with a 2-year-old in the house?
Thank you.
My son has a 1-year, 10-month-old that consistently gets up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. So that's why my wife isn't here this evening. She's with my daughter, who's still awake and crying. So, I'm not, I've had that problem myself, so appreciate that. All that said, we really like our neighborhood. We've been there for 10 years. We want to stay there. We don't want to move to another house. It's been a challenging housing market, as you probably have observed in Milton and other places across the Commonwealth. And we just would like to stay in our home, and this is the only way that we see fit to be able to do that. So,
Great. Mrs. King, do you have any questions of Mr. Zell? Or do you want a few minutes?
No, just, it appears that this is going to be built with the same design and made to fit in with it and
Yes.
so forth.
yeah, it's very important to us to keep the character of the house. The 1925 center entrance colonial style is a reason why we love our house and we want to do this project. And so we'll make sure that when we do the dormer, it's going to be very well kind of concealed by the existing roof. We're not trying to make it taller or higher than the existing roof line. So we're going to keep it symmetrically well done. And then the back of the house, the architecture will work the way the windows are laid out with the rest of the home.
Great. Mr. O'Brien, do you have any questions of Mr. Zell?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. What happens to the 2nd floor deck? Anything?
It remains.
And what type of windows are you contemplating for the dormer?
Double hung, windows, typical, same that you see through the rest of the house.
Let me be more specific. So double hung, similar to what's on the 2nd floor, as opposed to these picture window type things?
Correct. So those are screens.
Oh, those are screens. So
Yeah, that's a screened porch.
Screens in porch. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I should have clarified that. Yeah, the windows that we use on that 3rd floor will be similar to what you see in the front of the home.
Oh, okay. So that's a screened-in porch.
Yes.
A screened-in porch. Okay.
And then there's a mudroom. That one window is a mudroom to
Okay.
the side. Yeah.
And it's a bathroom, full bath?
Yes. Oh, and I should have mentioned, this project will also allow us to redo the 2nd floor bathroom, which is in desperate need of repair. We have some plumbing issues. We have a 1960s tile job that's semi-concealed. So we really need to do that as well, and by doing this project, we'll be able to do that efficiently.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Are you
Chairman.
going to be doing this project yourself?
No. We've been talking to a number of contractors,
Okay.
general contractors, so We're circling in on the contractor.
Oh, you don't have to go there. No,
Fair enough.
when
Thank you.
people mention bathrooms, I've had a couple of bathrooms replaced rather recently, and I know the terrors of having that done.
Yeah,
So it's, takes great adventure and courage to put up with that,
yeah.
particularly if it's a full blowout and reconstruction as opposed to putting in a couple of plastic pieces.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Ginny, do you have any further questions?
Excuse me, no, I don't.
Okay. Let me ask, is there any person present tonight who wishes to speak in support of this application? Or ask questions of the applicant, and there's no such person. Anybody want to speak in opposition to the application? We've got a couple of nods, nobody does. So we'll end the evidence portion of the hearing and discuss the application in open session and vote on it here and now. Mr. O'Brien, please.
Mr. Chairman, I think the case was very well presented. It sounds like it will be an enhancement to the property in addition to the neighborhood. Previous projects have been done well, has the support of the neighbors. There's no reason to deny this.
Mrs. King.
And I have to agree with that. I'm always a little bit nervous about granting relief on height of things, number of stories. But I'm satisfied that this is, you've got the agreement of the neighbors to the rear. The way that the mudroom is set up kind of breaks up the bulk of what it would look like anyway. So I'm in favor of this as well.
Okay, well, I agree with my colleagues. I think this is a classic in Milton. Older house, smaller lot, growing family, nowhere to go. And the question is, do you move to Pembroke or do you build in Milton? And people love the schools and they like to stay in Milton, and they have houses which are older. They're more difficult to renovate. So it takes courage to do that. Do you intend to be living in the premises while these improvements are taking place?
Yes, so the contractor's found a way to kind of stage the project. So
Okay.
he'll first come in that closet room and he'll put a wall up essentially between the rest of the house and build the staircase and up into the attic area. And then he'll attack the bathroom. So we'll be without a bathroom for a little while, but we'll figure that out. So
Okay,
we have
well-
family close by.
Yeah, no, it sounds very sophisticated. I thought the application was very well presented. You've got support of the neighbors, and it's this is a type of application that's good for you and your family, and it's equally good for the town because we want to keep young people in the town and not force them to move elsewhere. And you were talking about very briefly the crazy market that you have out there, which I'm very familiar with, and you see some houses in local communities, 3-bedroom, 3-deckers, $1.5 million.
Yeah.
And you just shake your head, $1.5 million for a 3-decker house, maybe 60 years old or 70 years old. So it's a frightening circumstance for family, and you throw on that the cost of education and all of that. It's a major league contribution that you're making to your home and to the town, and we should be encouraging this type of application, particularly that's as sophisticated as this. So I intend to vote in favor of this particular application. So all those in favor of granting this application and for special permit under section 4 of the bylaw, please say aye.
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 Well,
Thank
congratulations.
you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the board. Appreciate
So,
it.
keep in touch with
Okay.
Mr. Prondak. Can I ask you one question?
Sure.
When do you intend to do this?
In the spring
Okay,
would be
so-
ideal. So take your time with the decision. I appreciate you drafting that. And I know how much work that is, and so whenever it's ready, we'll be.
If you get another fan here,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Congratulations.
evening. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for coming in.
All right, thank you very
Sorry we kept you so
No,
late.
it's fine. That was very interesting.